A fuel-free engine, described as impossible to create, may now be a step closer to reality. According to leaked NASA documents named the EM Drive, the engine could one day have the potential to get a human crew to Mars in just 10 weeks without using a conventional rocket fuel or nuclear reactor. The latest report describes a series of successful tests carried out at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Texas. The experimental propulsion system has caused a stir as, according to the laws of physics, it should not work. Traditional rocket engines use chemical fuel, which is combusted and ejected from the thrusters in the airless vacuum of space. This works by the Newton's third law of motion, generating thrust by ejecting mass into the vacuum of space with no air needed. But in the case of the EM Drive, there is no fuel to eject. Instead, the design generates thrust by harnessing particles of light and bouncing microwaves around inside a closed chamber shaped like a cone. The movement generates thrust at the slim end of the cone, which drives the engine forward. The paper was first linked on an NASA spaceflight forum by Australian user Phil Wilson before being taken down by administrators, reports It Times. It was subsequently published by Next Big Future and describes how early tests of the system in a vacuum, recreating the conditions of the engine if it were used in space. Engineers carried out control bursts at 40, 60 and 80 watts, reporting the thrust achieved in a vacuum was similar to the performance achieved in air. The tests managed to generate 1.2 millinewtons per kilowatt meganewton kW of power, a fraction of the current state-of-the-art Hall thruster, which can achieve a mass of 60 meganewtons kW. But the researchers say the lack of fuel consumption could make up for the drop in power. In the leaked paper, the researchers explain, for missions with very large delta-V requirements, having a propellant consumption rate of 0 could offset the higher power requirements. Despite NASA's apparent test success, there is no indication the paper has been through peer review, a critical part of the scientific process, and has not been published in a journal. Mail Online contacted NASA for comment. A number of groups are reported to be working on the technology, including NASA's EagleWorks Laboratories, which is developing advanced propulsion systems and is cited in the recent paper. Earlier this year, inventor Roger Shaw filed a patent for an EM Drive engine design with a conducting plate to increase the thrust. A paper published in AIP Advances last month suggested the EM Drive produces an exhaust like every other rocket. EM Drive works just like any other engine. Dr. Arto Anila, physics professor at the University of Helsinki and lead author of the paper, told Mail Online at the time, its fuel is the input photons at microwave lengths. The researchers suggest the photons coming out of the machine interfere with each other, so the overall effect seems as if nothing is there. In the cavity, the input photons will bounce back and forth, and invariably some of them will interfere completely destructively. Then the two photons will be exactly 180 degrees out phase. At the complete interference, electromagnetic fields for the two photons will cancel exactly, but the photons themselves continue to propagate.